widowed cowboy waited 5 months for help, until an Apache woman answered his baby's cry. The widowed cowboy stood near the fence, holding his baby close to his chest. Her tiny body felt light, yet the weight in his heart felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. 5 months had passed since his wife died, 5 months since the world had gone quiet and cruel in ways he never imagined. His wife had been strong. She laughed easily and believed the land would always provide if they worked hard enough. But the birth had gone wrong and help was too far away. By the time the doctor arrived, it was already too late. The baby lived. His wife did not. Since that day, the cowboy felt like time had stopped moving for him, even though the sun still rose and set without care. Every morning he woke before dawn. He fed the horses, checked the fence, and tried to keep the ranch alive. Then he returned inside to care for his baby girl. She cried often, especially at night, and he did everything he could to calm her. He sang softly, even though his voice cracked. He rocked her in his arms, walking back and forth on the creaking floor. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it did not. Sleep became a stranger. His eyes burned with tiredness, and his hands shook when he tried to prepare food. He had written letters asking for help. He sent messages to distant neighbors and old friends. Some never replied. Others promised to come but never did. Winter made travel hard, and people had their own lives to worry about. After months of waiting, hope felt thin. The ranch that once felt warm and full now felt empty. His wife's things were still where she left them. Her shawl hung by the door. Her cup sat on the table. He could not bring himself to move them. Some nights when the baby finally slept, he sat alone and stared at the walls, listening to the silence press in on him. The baby cried again as the sun dipped low behind the hills. He checked her face, her hands, her tiny fingers curling around his shirt. He whispered to her, promising things he was not sure he could give. He promised safety. He promised love. He promised he would not give up, even when fear told him he was failing. Food supplies were running low. He stretched what little he had, eating less so the baby would have enough. His body grew thinner, his steps slower. Still, he worked. He believed stopping meant losing everything. That evening, the sky turned a deep orange. The air was cold, sharp against the skin. He sat on the porch with the baby, hoping the fresh air might calm her. Her cries echoed across the land, carrying farther than he realized. He felt embarrassed, worried someone might hear and think him weak. But no one ever came, or so he thought. After some time, the baby quieted, worn out from crying. He rested his head back against the wall and closed his eyes, just for a moment. His thoughts drifted to memories of his wife smiling, holding the baby for the first time. The pain came fast and sudden, tightening his chest. He opened his eyes again, breathing hard, reminding himself the baby needed him alive and standing. He stood and went inside, laying the baby down carefully. As he turned, he heard a sound outside. It was faint, almost like footsteps. His body tensed. He reached for the door, listening closely. The land was usually silent at night. No one traveled this far unless they had a reason. He opened the door slowly and looked out. A woman stood at a distance, still and quiet. She did not move closer. Her posture was calm, not threatening. Her clothing showed signs of long travel, and her eyes held both caution and strength. She had heard the baby's cry and followed it, guided by something deeper than curiosity. The cowboy froze. His first instinct was fear, shaped by years of stories and warnings passed down by others. But fear did not last long. Exhaustion and need softened it. He saw no anger in her face, only concern. The woman spoke first, her voice steady and respectful. She explained she was passing through the area. She said she heard a child crying for a long time and came to see if help was needed. She did not step forward until he nodded. He hesitated. Trust did not come easily anymore. But when the baby stirred and whimpered again, his choice became clear. He stepped aside and allowed her to enter. Inside the house, she looked around quietly. She noticed the signs of struggle right away. the lack of supplies. The tired man holding himself together by will alone. The baby, thin but alive, wrapped in worn cloth. The woman approached the baby slowly, asking permission with her eyes before touching her. When the cowboy nodded again, she gently placed her hand near the baby's chest. Her movements were careful, practiced. The baby relaxed almost at once, her breathing easing. The cowboy watched in disbelief. He felt something shift inside him, something close to relief. The woman did not speak much. She did not judge. She simply helped. She showed him small ways to soothe the baby, ways he had never been taught. She checked the fire, adjusted the blankets, and helped prepare a simple meal using what little was left. The house felt different with another presence inside, less heavy, less empty. As the night grew darker, the baby finally slept peacefully. The cowboy sat at the table, hands wrapped around a cup, staring down as if afraid to look up and break the moment. He thanked the woman quietly. His voice shook, and he did not hide it. She told him she understood loss. She did not explain further, but her eyes carried truth. She said she could stay a short while, help him rest, help the child grow stronger. She did not promise forever. She only offered what she could. For the first time in 5 months, the cowboy allowed himself to breathe without fear. He realized help had arrived, not in the form he expected, but in the form he needed most. Outside, the wind continued to move across the land, but inside the small ranch house, the silence finally began to break. Morning light entered the small ranch house through the cracked window, soft and pale. The cowboy woke slowly, unsure at first where he was. For a brief moment, he expected the familiar weight of worry to press down on him. Then he realized something was different. The baby was quiet, not silent in a worrying way, but calm, breathing evenly. He sat up quickly and looked toward the corner where the baby slept. She was wrapped warmly, her tiny chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Nearby, the Apache woman was kneeling by the fire, carefully adding wood. She noticed him stir and gave a small nod, respectful and gentle. He had not slept that deeply in months. His body felt sore, but his mind felt clearer. Shame and relief mixed inside him. He had needed help more than he wanted to admit. She prepared a simple meal, using what little remained. She worked without waste, careful with each movement. The cowboy watched quietly, noticing how calm she was, how sure. When she handed him a bowl, he hesitated, then accepted it. The food was warm and simple, but it felt like a gift. The baby woke soon after. She did not cry right away. Instead, she made soft sounds, stretching her small hands. The woman lifted her gently, showing the cowboy how to support her neck better, how to hold her closer so she felt safe. The baby relaxed against his chest. He felt something tighten in his throat. He had been trying so hard, but no one had shown him how. He realized how alone he had truly been. They spoke slowly, carefully, choosing words with care. The woman told him her name and explained she had been traveling between familiar lands. She did not ask many questions, but she listened when he spoke. He told her about his wife, about the birth, about the months that followed. His voice broke once, but he did not stop talking. She listened without interrupting, without looking away. As the day passed, she helped organize the house. She cleaned gently, not touching his wife's belongings without asking. That small respect meant more to him than he could explain. She showed him how to make the baby more comfortable using things he already had. A folded cloth, a warmer place near the fire, small changes that made a big difference. Outside, the land looked the same, but inside the house, the air felt lighter. The baby cried less. When she did cry, it did not last long. The woman showed him how to read the baby's needs, how to notice signs before the crying began. It felt like learning a new language. By afternoon, the cowboy found the strength to step outside and tend to his animals. The woman stayed with the baby, humming softly. The sound drifted through the open door, steady and calm. The cowboy paused, leaning on the fence, listening. He had not heard a sound like that in his home since his wife died. When he returned, the baby was asleep again. The woman sat nearby, carving a small piece of wood with care. She looked up as he entered and asked if he had enough food for the coming days. He admitted the truth. Supplies were almost gone. The nearest town was far, and he could not leave the baby alone. She thought quietly, then said she could help gather what the land offered. Roots, plants, small things that could keep them going. He felt unsure, but he trusted her knowledge more than his pride. Over the next few days, she did exactly what she promised. She moved through the land with purpose, gathering what was safe and useful. She taught him which plants could help with the baby's comfort, which could help him regain strength. Nothing was rushed. Everything was careful. The baby grew calmer each day. Her face filled out slightly. Her eyes followed movement with growing curiosity. The cowboy found himself smiling without meaning to. He talked to her more. He told her about her mother, about the land, about the life he hoped she would have. At night, the woman stayed near the fire, keeping watch so he could sleep. At first, he resisted. He felt guilty resting while someone else worked. But she reminded him that strength was not only in action, but also in knowing when to rest. One evening, voices carried across the land. 2 men passed near the ranch, their eyes lingering too long on the house. The cowboy felt old fear rise again. He stood stiffly, ready to protect what little he had left. The woman noticed immediately. She did not panic. She stood beside him, calm and steady. The men did not approach. They spoke among themselves and moved on, but the moment left a mark. The cowboy realized how vulnerable he truly was, how easily everything could be taken. That night he admitted his fear. He said he did not know how long he could keep the ranch safe. He worried about the baby's future. The woman listened and then spoke firmly. She told him fear was natural, but fear should not rule his choices. She said he had already proven his strength by surviving, by caring for the child alone for months. Her words stayed with him. As days turned into a week, trust grew quietly between them, not through grand gestures but through shared work and silent understanding. They respected each other's space. They shared meals. They watched over the baby together. One night the baby grew restless again. She cried harder than she had in days. The cowboy panicked, fear rushing back. The woman took the baby gently, checking her breathing, her warmth. She adjusted the blankets, held her close, and began to hum again. Slowly, the crying softened. The cowboy watched, tears filling his eyes. He realized he was no longer alone in this fight. Later, as the baby slept, he asked the question he had been holding back. He asked how long she planned to stay. The woman looked at the fire, then at the sleeping child. She said she did not know. She said her path was not fixed, but she added that she would not leave while the baby still needed care and the home still needed balance. The cowboy nodded. He did not ask for more. He did not push. For now, that was enough. Outside, the land remained wide and quiet, but inside the small ranch house something had changed. Trust had taken root. Hope, small and fragile, had begun to grow. The days moved forward in a slow, steady rhythm. Morning light came through the window, and evening shadows stretched across the floor. The ranch no longer felt like a place frozen in loss. It still carried pain, but it also carried movement, work, and quiet purpose. The cowboy grew stronger. With better rest and steady meals, his hands stopped shaking. His steps felt firmer on the ground. Each morning, he cared for the animals while the woman stayed with the baby. Each afternoon, they switched. She showed him how to move gently with the child, how to sense discomfort before tears came. He showed her the land, the fence lines, the places where the soil was good and where it was thin. They did not speak much about the future. They focused on the present. That was easier. The baby began to change in small but meaningful ways. She made soft sounds that were almost laughs. She reached for fingers and held them with surprising strength. When the cowboy came into the room, her eyes followed him, and sometimes she calmed just by hearing his voice. Each small sign felt like a victory. One afternoon, the cowboy noticed the woman standing near the window, watching the distance. Her posture was alert, her face serious. He asked what she saw. She said she felt a shift in the land, the kind that came before trouble. He did not fully understand, but he trusted her instincts. Later that day, a rider appeared far off, moving slowly toward the ranch. The cowboy's chest tightened. Visitors were rare and rarely welcome. He watched carefully as the rider stopped near the fence and looked around. The woman stayed close to the baby. She did not hide, but she did not step forward either. Her calm made the cowboy steady his breath. The rider called out, asking if anyone lived there. The cowboy answered from the porch, keeping his voice firm. The rider asked questions about supplies and travel routes. Nothing openly threatening, but the curiosity felt heavy. The woman stepped into view, standing beside the cowboy. The rider's eyes narrowed slightly, surprised. He said nothing rude, but his interest grew sharper. After a few moments, he thanked them and left, heading back the way he came. When the rider was gone, the cowboy felt tension leave his shoulders. He realized how exposed they were. One visitor could become many. One question could turn into danger. That night, the cowboy spoke openly. He said he feared for the baby's safety. He said he did not know how to protect the ranch alone if trouble came. Saying the words out loud made them feel heavier, but also more real. The woman listened carefully. She said protection did not always mean fighting. Sometimes it meant planning, sometimes it meant community, and sometimes it meant change. Her words stayed with him long after the fire burned low. Over the next few days, she helped him strengthen the ranch in small ways. They checked weak fence posts. They cleared sightlines near the house. They moved supplies into better storage. Nothing dramatic, but everything purposeful. The cowboy began to see her not just as help, but as a partner in survival. That realization surprised him. He had not allowed himself to think of partnership since his wife died. The thought brought guilt at first, but also honesty. He missed sharing the burden of life. One evening, while the baby slept, they sat outside watching the sky darken. The land stretched wide and quiet around them. The cowboy spoke about his wife again, but this time the pain did not overwhelm him. He spoke about her kindness, her strength, her belief that people could find good even in hard places. The woman listened and then shared a story of her own loss. She spoke of family taken by illness and distance, of moving forward without forgetting. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried weight. The cowboy realized they were alike in ways neither had planned. The baby woke crying suddenly, sharp and urgent. The cowboy rushed inside, fear rising again. The woman followed quickly. She checked the baby and realized she was ill, not dangerously, but enough to cause discomfort. The cowboy panicked, his mind racing to dark places. The woman stayed calm. She prepared simple remedies using knowledge passed down through generations. She showed him how to keep the baby warm, how to watch her breathing, how to remain calm so the child would feel safe. The night passed slowly. The baby cried less as hours went on. The cowboy did not leave her side. He held her gently, whispering reassurance, his voice breaking more than once. The woman stayed near, guiding him quietly. By morning, the baby's condition improved. She slept deeply, her breathing steady again. The cowboy felt relief crash over him, leaving him weak and grateful. He thanked the woman again, this time without shame. He admitted he could not have managed alone. She accepted his thanks simply. She reminded him that asking for help did not make him weak. It made him human. That experience changed something between them. Trust deepened. Not the kind that came from words, but the kind built in long nights and shared fear. The cowboy found himself watching her differently, noticing the way she moved, the way she thought ahead, the way she respected his space while standing firm when needed. Still, doubt crept in. He wondered what others would say if they saw her there. He wondered if trouble would come because of it. Those thoughts made him quiet at times. The woman noticed. One afternoon, she asked him directly if he regretted letting her stay. The question surprised him. He answered honestly. He said no. He said the house felt alive again because of her presence. She nodded, satisfied, but reminded him that her path was still her own. She would not stay where she was not wanted, but she would not leave out of fear either. As days passed, the ranch began to feel like a place with direction again. The baby grew stronger. The cowboy laughed more, even if softly. The woman smiled more often, her guard lowering bit by bit. One evening, a storm rolled in fast and fierce. Wind shook the house and rain struck hard. The cowboy secured what he could while the woman stayed inside with the baby. When a loud crack echoed outside, the cowboy feared the worst. They worked together through the storm, checking damage, calming the baby, keeping the fire alive. By morning, the storm passed, leaving the land wet but intact. The house still stood. The baby slept peacefully. Standing together in the quiet after, the cowboy realized something important. Life had tested him again and again, but this time, he had not faced it alone. The thought brought comfort and fear at the same time, because it meant caring again. As the sun rose, casting light over the land, the cowboy understood that the hardest part of survival was not the work or the danger. It was opening his heart after loss. And slowly, carefully, he was beginning to do just that. The storm left the land quiet in a way that felt different from before. The air was clean, and the ground held the smell of rain. The cowboy stepped outside at first light and looked over the ranch. Some fence posts leaned, and a few boards had come loose, but nothing was lost. He felt a deep relief settle in his chest. Inside the house, the baby slept soundly, and the woman moved softly, keeping the fire alive. Work filled the morning. The cowboy repaired what he could while the woman stayed near the child. When he finished one task, he started another. His hands moved with purpose again. He was not just surviving now. He was planning. As the sun rose higher, two riders appeared in the distance. The cowboy froze. His heart beat faster and old fear returned. He wiped his hands and watched closely. The riders slowed near the fence and spoke to each other. They looked toward the house. The baby's safety filled his thoughts. The woman stepped beside him. She did not ask questions. She stood steady, eyes calm, posture strong. The cowboy felt her presence like a wall at his side. He called out and asked what they wanted. The riders said they were checking land claims after the storm, looking for damage and owners. Their voices were polite but firm. The cowboy answered carefully. He named the land, spoke of repairs, and kept his words simple. The riders looked at the woman again. One of them frowned slightly. The cowboy felt anger rise, but he controlled it. He stood taller and said she was helping him care for his child and the ranch. His voice did not shake. After a moment, the riders nodded and moved on. When they were gone, the cowboy released a breath he did not know he was holding. The woman met his eyes. She thanked him quietly for speaking clearly and without fear. He said he meant every word. That afternoon, the baby grew restless again. She did not cry hard, but she was not settled. The woman showed the cowboy how to check her warmth and comfort. Together, they worked slowly, gently, until the baby relaxed. The cowboy felt proud that he knew what to do now, that he did not panic. He had learned. As days passed, pressure from outside did not disappear. A few more travelers came through the area. Some asked questions. Some looked too long. The cowboy felt the weight of being watched. He worried that trouble might come not because of anything wrong, but because people feared what they did not understand. One evening, a neighbor arrived without warning. He stood at the gate and spoke sharply. He asked why the woman was staying there. He hinted that it would bring problems. The cowboy listened, then answered calmly. He said the baby needed care and the ranch needed help. He said he would not turn away someone who saved his child. The neighbor scoffed and warned him again. When he left, the cowboy felt shaken but certain. The woman said nothing at first. Later, she asked if he felt safe with her there. The question hurt him, but he understood why she asked. He answered honestly. He said fear existed no matter what, but safety came from trust and preparation. He said the house felt safer now than it had in months. She nodded, accepting his words without pride or doubt. That night the baby cried softly in her sleep. The cowboy held her, rocking gently. The woman sat nearby, watching the fire. The cowboy spoke quietly about the future. He wondered aloud if he should move closer to town or seek help from family. The woman listened and offered her thoughts. She said moving was not always escape, and staying was not always stubbornness. The choice should come from strength, not fear. The cowboy thought about that for a long time. The next morning, the woman suggested they visit a nearby place where supplies might be traded. The cowboy hesitated. Leaving the ranch felt risky, but staying without supplies was worse. They planned carefully. The woman stayed with the baby while the cowboy rode out at dawn. Traveling again reminded him of who he had been before loss. The land felt wide and the sky open. When he returned later that day with basic supplies, he felt a small victory. The woman smiled when she saw what he brought. The baby laughed softly when he picked her up. The sound filled the house with warmth. As weeks passed, the baby grew stronger. She smiled more. She slept better. The cowboy felt joy again, mixed with fear of losing it. The woman helped him prepare for winter's end, teaching him ways to store food and protect the house. Outside voices continued, but they grew fewer. People moved on. The ranch remained standing. One evening, a group of men stopped near the property. Their tone was rough, their questions careless. The cowboy stepped forward, ready to defend his home. The woman stood beside him again, calm and clear. She spoke with confidence, stating boundaries without anger. The men laughed at first, then saw the cowboy's resolve. They left without crossing the fence. When they were gone, the cowboy's hands trembled. The woman placed a steady hand on his arm, grounding him. He realized courage did not mean feeling no fear. It meant standing firm despite it. That night, the cowboy admitted how close he felt to breaking at times. He admitted he worried about judgment, about danger, about failing his child. The woman listened and told him something simple. She said love made people brave, but it also made them careful. Both were needed. As spring signs appeared, the land softened. The cowboy repaired more of the ranch. He planned for crops. He wrote fewer letters asking for help and more notes of gratitude. He began to believe the future could be shaped. One afternoon, while watching the baby play on a blanket near the door, the cowboy felt a deep sense of peace. He realized the house no longer felt like a place of waiting. It felt like a place of choosing. The woman noticed his calm and asked what he was thinking. He said he was thinking about staying, about building, about protecting what mattered. He said he did not want fear to decide his life anymore. She smiled softly and said fear would always visit, but it did not have to stay. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in warm colors, the cowboy looked around his home. He saw a child growing strong, a woman who had stood by him, and a land that had weathered storms. He knew challenges remained, but he also knew something else. Spring arrived slowly, not all at once, but in small signs that were easy to miss if one was not paying attention. The ground softened. New grass pushed through the soil. The air lost its sharp edge. The cowboy noticed these changes as he worked each morning, and with every new sign, something inside him eased. The baby grew stronger day by day. Her cheeks filled out and her eyes shone with curiosity. She laughed more often now, a soft sound that made the cowboy pause in whatever he was doing just to listen. Each laugh felt like proof that life could move forward again. The woman remained steady, just as she had been from the beginning. She did not rush things or make promises she could not keep. She helped where she was needed and stepped back when the cowboy found his own rhythm. She treated the ranch as a shared responsibility, not something she controlled. One morning, the cowboy realized he no longer woke up with fear as his first thought. Instead, he thought about feeding the animals, checking the fence, and then holding his child. That change surprised him. Fear had shaped his days for so long that he barely recognized life without it. The land around the ranch became more active as travelers passed again. Some waved from a distance. Others stopped briefly to speak. Word had spread that the ranch was no longer abandoned or struggling. It was alive. People moved on more quickly now, less curious, less threatening. The cowboy noticed that people treated him differently too. He stood taller. His voice was firmer. He no longer spoke as someone waiting to fail. He spoke as someone who belonged. One afternoon, while the baby slept in the shade near the house, the cowboy and the woman worked side by side repairing a section of fence. They moved easily together, handing tools back and forth without needing many words. The quiet felt comfortable, not empty. When the work was done, they sat on the porch steps, watching the land stretch out before them. The cowboy finally spoke the thought that had been growing inside him. He said he could not imagine how he would have survived without her help. He said the baby might not have made it. His voice shook slightly, but he did not hide it. The woman listened, then answered calmly. She said help often arrived in unexpected ways. She said people crossed paths for reasons they did not always understand right away. Her words were simple, but they carried truth. That evening, the baby took her first small step while holding onto the table. The cowboy froze when he saw it, then laughed softly, tears filling his eyes. He knelt down, encouraging her gently. When she stumbled into his arms, he held her close, overwhelmed with joy. The woman watched quietly, a small smile on her face. She did not interrupt the moment. She understood its meaning. As weeks passed, the cowboy made plans for the future. He began planting small crops. He repaired the barn more fully. He thought about schooling for the child someday, about community, about building a life that did not depend on isolation. One evening, as the sun set low, the woman spoke about her own path. She said her people would soon expect her to return. She did not say it with sadness or distance. She said it honestly, the way she said everything. The cowboy felt a tightness in his chest. He had known this moment would come. He had tried not to think about it too much. He asked her what she wanted, not what was expected, but what she truly wanted. She thought for a long time before answering. She said she valued her roots, but she also valued the life they had built here. She said she did not believe paths were fixed. They could bend, change, and grow. The cowboy nodded. He said he would not ask her to stay out of fear or need. But he said if she chose to stay, it would be because she belonged, not because she was trapped by duty. That night, the baby slept peacefully between them as they sat near the fire. The warmth filled the room. The silence felt full, not lonely. The next morning, the woman made her choice. She said she would stay longer, not forever promised, but present and committed. She said she wanted to help raise the child, help protect the land, and see what this life could become. The cowboy did not speak right away. He simply nodded, his eyes shining. Gratitude and respect filled him. He knew this was not ownership or control. It was partnership. As the days grew longer, the ranch transformed. It became a place of laughter, learning, and shared effort. The baby learned to walk more confidently. She called for the cowboy when she woke and reached for the woman when she needed comfort. Both answered her without hesitation. Neighbors came by more often now, not to question, but to trade and talk. Some still watched carefully, but many saw the strength of the home and respected it. The cowboy no longer worried as much about judgment. He focused on what mattered. One afternoon, while watching the child play in the dirt, the cowboy felt something settle inside him. He realized he was no longer waiting for help. He was no longer counting days alone. He was living. The woman sat beside him and asked what he was thinking. He told her he had waited 5 months for help, believing it might never come. He said when it finally did, it did not arrive with noise or force. It arrived with patience, care, and strength. She nodded and said help often listened before it acted. As the sun dipped low, the cowboy held his child and looked out over the land. He thought about loss, about survival, and about the future. He knew grief would always be part of him. It had shaped who he was, but it no longer controlled him. He had learned that family could be built, not just inherited. That trust could grow from shared struggle. That healing did not erase pain, but it gave it meaning. The wind moved gently across the grass, no longer harsh or lonely. Inside the small ranch house, warmth and life remained. The baby laughed, the woman prepared a meal, and the cowboy felt steady. Help had come. Not in the way he imagined, but in the way that saved him. And this time, he was ready to keep it.